Hey there, how's it going? I'm Chris with PearsonCopy.com, and I'm here to help your brands make more sales with email. As part of my 100 emails in 100 days breakdown challenge, I'm going to be breaking down an email from Manly Bands. I believe this email is an abandoned browser email. So I was looking at some products there on their website, and they hit me with this email to try and bring me back and actually add a product or add some products to my cart and actually make a purchase. So with that being said, that's the context. It's abandoned browser email, and I'm going to go ahead and dive in. So the subject line here is "Don't let your band be an afterthought." And that subject line at first, it's a direct call out for a pain point, or just a common pain point in the industry. And when you actually open the email, that is a quote from John, Manly Band's co-CEO, and that's something that he mentions. And I guess one of his reasons why he started the company is because men's wedding rings or men's bands are an afterthought once proposal happens, the engagement happens, and everything up to the wedding. Is an afterthought. It's not really thought of as like something that's important. So John here and the brand Mainly Bands addresses a common problem in the industry or a common thought in the industry, and they make that their subject line. So it's a direct call out of that problem, which I think is great. If you do direct call outs with problems, those typically get open because they are, in most cases, they are a negative. So negative typically gets better response than positive. So you want to be careful how often you use negative, but it does get a better response in most cases. So just keep that in mind with your subject lines there. As we move into the email here, we've got the logo, the brand name, and menu. In this case, I would test removing at least the menu, maybe the brand name. I would test this entire email as a plain text email, as like a letter from the CEO or from John, simply because as we go through this, you're going to see that this email is framed and laid out in a pain point or problem, agitate the problem, solution oriented, like copywriting framework. So they do this with a little bit of design, a little bit of copy, and they do a hybrid model. But I would test this with plain text with that same model. You could take these pictures out and the graphics out and just like tweak the copy a little bit and write as a plain text as a letter from John saying, "Hey, it's John, co-CEO or co-founder of Manly Bands. I wanted to share something with you today." That is it's a big deal, and you're probably thinking it too is like why are men's wedding rings an afterthought? And I want to explain why we started our business, etc. So I'll go ahead and unpack that a little bit here in a second. But yeah, I would test this as a plain text email. Here's the problem again. So it's reiterated as a quote here. Potentially put this: "Don't let your band be an afterthought." Put that in quotes and make sure it's a quote in the subject line, as opposed to just a statement or just a subject line without it being something pulled from someone. So that's something else you could test too. Subject lines is make it a quote as opposed to just a statement. You have a graphic here. Meet our co-founders John and Michelle. So that's great. And then they dive into their story of why they started Mainly Bands, essentially. And I'm going to read this copy to you and explain to you what this is like a brand origin story, and they frame it in a pain, agitate, solution, copywriting framework. So it's a very interesting way to combine those two. So you have an origin story and you put that framework together, and this is the email that you would get. So here, let me read this copy for you, and we'll break it down as we go. When getting married, John and Michelle found out the hard way that men's wedding bands were an afterthought. The styles were lame, the prices were bonkers, and John couldn't even find a ring that fit right. So there you go. So they got married. So there's a catalyst to this problem. Is when they got married, they found out the hard way that men's wedding bands were an afterthought. That's where this comes from, right? It's part of their origin story, and that's the problem. And the problem is that it's an afterthought. And then they agitate that with saying the styles were lame, the prices were bonkers, and John couldn't even find a ring that fit right. So those are the three big things that agitate this problem. It's an afterthought, and these are the three big things you ran into when you tried to get a man's wedding ring, right? And then once you read that, you move down here to John here with, it looks like a thought here of a ring, and then I just wanted to find a ring I could get excited about. So that agitates the problem just a little bit more, saying, "Hey, all these problems, here's the pain point, it's an afterthought. Here's agitating the problem. Here's one more thing that agitates it." But this is a transition piece, right? It's a segue of, I just want a ring I could get excited about. So one, you're implying that there weren't any rings that you get excited about, but you're also saying directly that my desire is to get a ring I could get excited about. So there's a nice segue here with the copy. And so that segues into, this is still part of the problem, I would say, but it does introduce the desire. And that segues into what John and Michelle did about this. It says here, throwing caution to the wind for the greater good. So they risk their own being and their own financials, and they risk everything and did this for the greater good for men who want to get married and get their own bands that they get excited about, right? They decided to flip the men's ring industry on its head, creating more exciting bands for dudes to be proud of. So there's the transformation and the decision, right, to do something about it. Instead of saying, "Oh, well, this is just how it is. We're going to move on." They decided to start their own brand and make rings that dudes can be proud of and get excited about. And that's your story. And the solution, or that's the solution, right? That's the solution that they went for. And part of the solution is looking for unique styles. So that's the first thing, is like, I want something that's exciting and it's unique. There you go. And the great part about this email is it follows that pain, agitate, solution model very closely. You could say it's AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action, but I think PAS, it follows that pretty closely. So there's part of the solution, looking for unique styles. That's basically what they're saying is, hey, here's some unique styles you get excited about and you can be proud of. Boom, there's the story. That's where the story stops, right? And then once somebody encounters that story, what happens? Well, objections show up, right? So if you make an offer to somebody, in more cases than not, they're going to object to it and have a question or have a reason why they won't buy, or put a hurdle in the way of why they couldn't get the result that you're promising. And that's what this email does. It goes right into the primary, or one of the primary objections is, do we carry the right size? And so this is the big thing, I would imagine, after doing research and just selling for long enough, that you say, hey, the biggest question we get asked, or one of the big questions, one of the big hurdles, is that people don't know if we have the right size. And so after hearing this, you're like, yeah, I'm excited. I want these styles look rad. I'm curious, but I don't want to click through because people usually don't have my size, or I don't know if they will. So I'm not going to waste my time if they don't have my size. And there you go. So they address that. Our typical bands come in sizes 5 to 17, but we can make custom bands in sizes 3 to 25. So they have a huge range of sizes when it comes to bands. And then so it's like, okay, cool. You can make one my size. Perfect. What about my budget? Because I'm, either I'm willing to spend 4, 5, 10, $15,000 on a band, or I'm only willing to spend like $100 or maybe less. The next objection or next hurdle is money. Like, what does it cost? These are all custom, unique. They're unique styles. You can get my size. This has got to cost more than what I'm willing to spend, because you can't have this type of offer of having a unique style in the right size without it costing a lot of money, right? So that's the next objection is, okay, now what does it cost? What's the catch? And this email addresses that objection right up front, and it says, do you have something that fits my budget? That's the next question, right? And so Manly Bands and the team, they break out their rings into price categories: $1 sign, $2 sign, $3 sign. We take our slogan, a band for every man, seriously. Whether you're looking to spend tens, hundreds, or thousands, don't settle for a boring band. Get a ring you are stoked to wear. So then they break down that objection, or address it and say, hey, we have different price ranges, and you can get excited about a ring in any price range depending on your budget. So that's the next objection. And then finally, if even after that you're like, I don't know, I'm not really sure, I don't know anybody that's actually bought one of these, and I need a little push off the fence to actually consider buying this, they go right into that objection of like, they're hemming and hawing, I have to think about it, or I'm not sure if I'll like it. Well, if you're not sure, here's addressing that objection. Dudes and their spouses love us. Over 15,000 5-star reviews. That is absolutely insane. That's a ton of reviews for men's wedding bands. Like, it's absolutely bonkers. And they show, again, categories, and I'm assuming these are the most popular categories: black rings, tungsten, meteorites, and bestsellers. Say, here's the social proof. Here's the most popular categories. You can start there too. And then they move into the features of the features of buying from them. Fast free shipping, fast and easy exchange, free limited warranty. So something to consider, and they have your footer info, right? So something to consider with this email is, they're actually taking their origin story, fitting it into a PES copywriting framework here, right? And I'm not. Again, I said I would test this as a plain text, and the only reason being is, this email would be half the length, but also potentially get more clicks because it doesn't use graphics. And I'm curious to know what their delivery percentages on this email, what their open rates are, what their click rates are, what their sales are on this email, of getting people to add this stuff to their cart. Because this isn't a abandoned browser, so you're not necessarily trying to sell. What you're trying to do is get people excited about actually adding stuff to their cart and buying. So it's one of those consideration solution buying stage to consideration stage. So you're not technically trying to get their credit card from them with this email. What you're trying to do is get them excited about actually shopping and actually going toward that purchase. So that's why I would say a plain text might actually work here pretty well, because you're just getting an email from John, or even say this from Michelle and say, hey, it's Michelle. I wanted to tell the story of how John and I started the company. And we think it's important you know this because when you buy from us, you're not just buying another men's wedding ring. Like we actually care about you, and we wanted to get you excited about these rings and use this email to get them excited, and then have them click through the site to actually shop these styles, size, and budget stuff, and use the site to sell. And close them into adding to their cart. So there's different strategies here, but I do appreciate, and one of the big reasons why I want to do this email as a breakdown is because they do use a hybrid approach. They use copy, they use frameworks that are very, very clear when you actually dig into them, of what they're doing here. The next thing I think ultimately, I'm just looking at this again, is they have the objection and they say, hey, here's the CTA to shop all brands. They have an objection. With do they carry the right size, and they answer that objection. There's no CTA really because it's like, okay, we have your size, like there's not really something to do. And then do you have something that fits my budget? Yep, here, shop these types of categories. And they're basically just trying to find people that once they tell their story of starting the brand and why they did it and the problems and agitating that and giving the solution, they're trying to get people into the site, because they've been shopping around looking at the site, but they didn't add anything to the cart. They're trying to get them back to the site based on where they're at with their buying journey. So they're in the most likely in the solution and consideration stage with this email, because they're shopping the site. Maybe they're looking around at rings. They might be in the problem stage because they're like, I don't know if I have a ring that's going to fit my size. They didn't dig enough into the site. So you're just trying to give them the info to get them back to the site so they'll actually shop around and actually look for a ring that they want and then potentially put that in their cart. And then that moves them to the abandoned cart, abandoned checkout type stuff. Or they complete the purchase and they're in post purchase, and they're on your list now. So this email I think does really well at covering that problem, solution, consideration, buying stages all in one email. Another idea could be is to split this up into 3 different emails, right? So the first one could be the problem. It could be the problem stage, and you tell the story. And you say, hey, by the way, we have a bunch of unique styles, shop all bands, boom, finish that email. The next email for browser abandon, if they don't come back and start adding stuff to their cart, is say, hey, we just want to let you know that we have the right size for you. And maybe use that as the next problem. The direct call out for the problem is, do you have the right size for me? Question mark. And then talk about why they have such a wide range of sizes, and because it was an afterthought. The afterthought could be the theme of this browser abandon, right? Rings are not an afterthought to us. It is a primary thought. Once you get engaged, the next thing is getting the man's wedding band, right? Like that's the thing you want to get. And then the third email could be fits my budget. So if the unique styles and the size didn't get you to go add something to your cart, or at least shop more, spend more time on the site and get to know the brand, then it's got to be the money, right? The money is probably the biggest hurdle, even though it's the third objection here, the third thing. And you can talk about why they make, because right here we take our slogan, a band for every man, seriously, whether you're looking to spend tens, hundreds, or thousands. So that right there, we take a band for every man seriously. You could tell the story of why. Like, why do you take it seriously? And the afterthought is still the theme, but you talk about that theme in the context of a band for every man, and where that quote from, what that quote came from, and why that means so much. So this email has a ton in it, and you could break this up into 3 emails. You could like this one, you can have it as one. You could test these as plain text. You could do a hybrid. You could do all design. Like, there's so many different things you can do to see how to optimize this to get the best result possible. But I'm super pumped for Mainly Bands because they're doing it right. Like, this is how email's supposed to be done, and this is probably performing for them really well. If it isn't, then some of those insights, like I mentioned, I'll go through them again here to wrap up the video. Is the direct offer here, or the direct call outs for the problem? Put this in quotes so it looks like it's coming from a person, like somebody said it, which they make that here in the header. In the first graphic is John said that, like, men's wedding ring shouldn't be an afterthought. Put that as a quote, right? The next thing is potentially test this as a plain text and remove all the design and just tell the story, right? Use plain text, tell the story, and use the unique style as email 1. Tell another story, plain text, with the second email as the right size. So keeping up the afterthought theme, but using right size as the conversation topic, and then afterthought theme still, does it fit my budget, as a third email, and say, hey, it must be the money. If these 2 things don't get you excited, then this has to be the last barrier. Like, this is the last barrier that's going to keep you from buying. So that's the last thing there. And then every single one of these emails, you can stack social proof. So something here, instead of putting over 15,000 5-star reviews, that's wonderful. Like, that's a ton of reviews. Is I'd go find 3 to 5 to 7 reviews per objection here of like unique styles. Find five reviews that you have that talk about unique styles and put them in the email, stack them at the bottom of the email or somewhere in the email, using to enhance the story that you're telling, right? Do we have the right size? Find 7 emails that talk about right size. Same thing with the budget. Find a couple reviews, 3, 5, 7 of those that talk about why, like the budget being the main reason they bought. Is like, oh, it fit my budget because I was not trying to spend thousands, but I was willing to spend a couple hundred or whatever, and use that to show that what you're saying is real. It's not just you saying, "Hey, we're the best in the biz." Our customers are actually saying it because these are the reasons. So this is how I break up the browse abandon and make it 3 emails. So that's the second big insight. The third one, um, I mean, I think that covers it. Those are the big two, right? Those are the big two. Is your subject line, making that a quote. Oh, there you go. The second is a plain text email, right? So test this one. This email is a plain text. The third one is break it up into 3 emails and have these 3 sections as like your topic of conversation. The theme being the afterthought idea, right? So yeah, those are the three big insights. I hope this helped. Please take this back to your own browser abandonment emails. Use what I pulled out here. See if it works for you. If it does, let me know. And yeah, stick around to watch more of my videos, my 100 emails, 100 days breakdown challenge that I'm doing. Go and check out my other videos. I think we're up to almost 90 or 89 at the recording of this video. So go check those out, comment on them. Let me know if you have questions. More than happy to help. And with that being said, thanks for watching.